Hello, this is Julian with Coffee Reviews, and today is part 1 of our 2023 KaffeBox Advent Calendar Blind Taste Test Ranking Series. The series will be broken down into 5 videos, with today's video featuring coffees 1 through 6, then we'll have 7 through 12, 13 through 18, and 19 through 24, and the winner of each of those videos will be featured in a final video alongside 2 wildcards to determine our favorite coffee from the entirety of KaffeBox's 2023 Advent Calendar. So let's go ahead and introduce the coffees that will be featured in today's video, beginning with day 1, which is the Kahata AB, a wash-processed Kenya from Langøra Kaffe, based out of Stjørdal, Norway. And a quick disclaimer about that coffee, I'm actually working on a review for it, so it's the only one that I do have some background familiarity with going into this video, and I just wanted to document that note. Day 2, we have the Gitwe, a wash-processed Burundi from Frukt Coffee, based out of Turku, Finland. Day 3 is the Finca Lord Voldemort, a wash-processed Colombia from Muttley and Jack, based out of Stockholm, Sweden. Day 4 is the Daterra Delight, an anaerobic honey-processed Brazil from Clever Coffee, based out of Otter, Denmark. Day 5 is the Manantial, a natural processed Nicaragua from Slöinge Coffee, based out of Slöinge, Sweden. And then day 6, we have the Chelbesa, a wash-processed Ethiopian coffee from Love, based out of Lund, Sweden. All right, let's go ahead and move these out of the way for the time being. And as always, none of these cups are labeled anywhere except on the bottom. We just like to shuffle them around for good measure, and it gives us an opportunity to discuss what we have in our hands here today. And this is actually a pretty even blind taste test rankings video, as we have 4 wash processed coffees and 2 non-wash coffees. And given that I only have familiarity with one of them, and I have pretty limited familiarity with most of the roasters on this table, then it's safe to say that it's pretty much anyone's game to potentially win this blind taste test video. I feel like it's also going to be a pretty challenging one, as given that we have 4 wash processed coffees and some similar characteristics to most of them, that part could trip me up. Also the fact that we have a couple of different processed coffees, that could be tricky in this too. Other than that though, I'm kind of curious to see what happens. We're going to move this to the side right here for now. And we're going to begin with this coffee right over here. And I'm going to be ranking them from my favorite on this side and my least favorite on this side. So let's go ahead and begin right here with this cup, cup number 1. Right off the bat, I feel like, interestingly, we got one of the processed coffees, as this one right here doesn't necessarily have the cleanliness or clarity of a wash processed coffee, but some nice sweetness in general. Still on the slightly cleaner side of things, it's got that ever so slightly funky stone fruit aspect to it, and I think that's a little bit of a giveaway as to what this coffee might potentially be. I imagine it's one of the more processed coffees, so we're going to place it right here for right now, and let's move on to cup number 2. This one right here is significantly more tame, definitely a little bit more moderation on this one. Got an ever so slight savory component to it, leading me to believe it could be one of 2 coffees. I'm actually going to put it in second place for right now. I think maybe the moderacy of this one isn't necessarily appealing to me too much, given that this one had really nice sweetness, and while it was a little funky and a little less clean, I think I just enjoyed it a little more. That's how we're placing them for right now. Let's move on to cup number 3. This one right here, I imagine, is possibly the Kenya, given that it's got some really notable brightness to it. It seems to be the defining factor of this coffee as well. I think I'm going to place it, though, in second place for right now. I think that did set it apart from whatever this coffee is, mostly because it had something a little bit more enjoyable about it in terms of the characteristics, that of course being the brightness that was present. So that's the way I'm putting them for right now. Let's move on to cup number 4. This one right here, I'm not entirely sure, although the finish leads me to believing that it's probably the other processed coffee that we do have on this table, as it's also not necessarily offering the same level of clarity as some of these other coffees. I'm definitely agreeing with that assessment. I'm going to place it in 4th place for right now. Let's move on to the next coffee, coffee number 5. This one right here is probably going to be your wash processed Ethiopian coffee. It's got some really notable florality to it, and I think for that reason, it currently stands alone as being my favorite, given my love for floral coffees. So that's not too surprising, especially if that is our wash processed Ethiopian coffee. So that's the way they're placing right now, and let's move into our last cup. This one right here has got a very notable savoriness to it. That's going to make this a very tricky decision. I think that the savoriness is a little off-putting in the sense that it's just very strong within this coffee. That's the way I'm going to rank them for right now. I think I'm only overly confident on one of these coffees, and that is the first place one, which is kind of weird given that I should have a lot more familiarity with that Kenyan coffee and I should be able to determine which one it is, though I'm a little confident on that. Let's run through these one more time, see if I agree with the rankings, and start making some guesses. So this one right here I placed in first place. I'm pretty confident this is my favorite though. That one has to be our wash processed Ethiopian coffee, and let me consult our notes to see which one the washed coffee is, and it is day 6. So I'm confident on making the guess that this is our wash processed Ethiopian coffee. All right, let's move down the line. I think I've mentioned that this is probably going to be one of our processed coffees, and on the second run through I still kind of feel that way, though I like it. So I'm going to guess it has to be one of the coffees. I'm going to guess it's either going to be the Nicaragua or it's going to be the Brazil, and I have a slight suspicion that it's actually going to be the Nicaragua. I think that maybe the Brazilian coffee is probably going to be the slightly more tame of the two, even though it is an anaerobic process, mostly because of the origins that we do have. So that's the way I'm going to place those for right now, above average clarity if it is in fact a natural processed Nicaraguan coffee. Let's keep moving down the line. Yes, I'm not entirely, I have no idea what that coffee is if I'm being completely honest. It's so tame, it's so moderate, and there's nothing that's necessarily jumping out or standing out to me too much about that coffee. I think it just placed above these three because there was something that I was a little hesitant about when it came to these three coffees. I'm starting to think that this could possibly be the Burundi coffees. It's got that kind of interesting, I don't even know how you describe it. There's a taste when it comes to Burundi coffees that's a little, I don't even necessarily want to say earthy, but that's kind of the best way I can describe it. So I think that might be the Burundi coffee, but I'm not entirely sure. I'm not sure at all on these two coffees. And I think I said originally that was going to be the other processed coffee. Yeah, I'm getting a little tripped up on these final four if I'm being completely honest. And I wonder if the savoriness actually does lend it to being the Kenyan coffee. It's not necessarily the brightest though. All right, the only other one I'm confident on is that this is the other processed coffee, which I said if that's going to be the number 5, then this one right here has to be the number 4. And now I really have to start making some guesses on these other coffees. I think that this one right here just has a little bit more brightness to it. I'm not necessarily loving these guesses, but we're going to give it a shot. I'm going to guess that this is the Kenya, I'm going to guess that this is the Burundi, and I'm going to guess that this is the Colombia, which means the Kenya and the Burundi are 1 and 2. So I said, this is the Kenya, this is the Burundi, and that means this is the Colombia. All right, I am not overly confident on anything but the one I placed in first place. So let's see how we did. This one right here I said was the Colombia. So this one right here should say number 3. Okay, off to a good start. And it is a whoosh whoosh coffee. And I don't have too much familiarity with this one specifically, though I did try Manhattan's version of it and I quite liked it. I think the only reason, even though it has that savoriness to it, that I kind of did process of elimination on, the brightness on this one and then that kind of Burundi-like taste to this one, and that's why I placed these two right here, and that left me with that. So I think that's just kind of the only reason I have for justifying it. But that savoriness was a little off-putting for me, and that's why I finished in that spot. Let's move on. This one right here I said was one of our processed coffees, and I guessed 4, so if it's 4 or 5, I'm fine with that because it just felt like it wasn't one of our washed. Okay, 4. We're off to a pretty good start, actually. And process of elimination once again. I imagined that the Brazilian coffee wasn't going to be quite as intense as the natural, and for that reason, I just kind of put them in that position. I'm really surprised that we're 2 for 2 so far. Let's move on. This one right here, this is probably the make or break. I said that this one was the Burundi, which should be number 2. So I think that this will determine whether or not I got this all right. Number 2. Perfect. Okay. And I said it's got that earthy Burundi tone to it. So now I'm feeling a little bit more confident. I think I got these last 3 right. So let's move on. This one right here I said was mostly because of the brightness. And given that I've been drinking this coffee a lot, I should know better that this one right here is the Kenya. So I said number 1 for the Kahata from Langøra. And it is perfect, 4 for 4. I'm 100% confident on the rest. Let's just run through it. And then this one right here I said was the Daterra Delight from Clever, which is the Nicaragua from Slöinge. So it should be the Manantial. Natural processed Nicaragua. Wow. I don't think I would have expected that one to place second place going into this video. Credits to them on this one. Who is this? Slöinge Coffee. Massive credit. This is very clean for what it is. I don't think I've ever had a natural processed Nicaraguan coffee that came out that clean. It does have some really nice intensity to it. This one surprised me. It is my biggest winner in this blind taste test because I could have easily seen this coffee finishing last. Massive credit to them. And of course, first place is going to be our wash processed Ethiopian coffee. And that, I mean, I could tell right from the start, but it was probably a little bit of a favor going into it. Some really nice floral components to it. So 6 for 6, off to a really good start. Given that I wasn't overly confident, I've had a peek as to the coffees that are coming up, so I think I will actually do better in the next blind taste test. Not that I can improve from here. This was actually really surprising to me, but I will take a 6 for 6 any day, no matter how I came to that conclusion. But I'm going to leave this part 1 at this, as of course we have 4 more videos in this blind taste test series coming up. So as I always say, if you guys enjoy these videos, especially these blind taste test ones, then give them a like, as they are by far the most difficult to make, but they are the most enjoyable to do as well. So like this video. If you're enjoying the content in general, give it a like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. This right here has been part 1 of our 2023 KaffeBox Advent Calendar Blind Taste Test Ranking Series. Thank you for watching.